What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And hold up, you guys hear that? Oh my god, you're such a baby. It's just hair. Plus, I just bought this new gluten-free conditioner last weekend.
Amazing.
And I even got these throat Botox injections that really beef up your voice. So you can go from sounding like to. So anytime I need to switch to Karen and someone asks me where my mask is, I can just do that and then just tell them my doctor told me to tell them that I have diabetes. What's up, guys, and welcome back. Thanks for being here for another review, and also thank you to any of my new subscribers. I greatly appreciate the support, and thank you so much for subscribing because it really helps me out and really helps this channel out, so thank you. So today we're talking about Netflix's new horror series, Ju-On Origins, which follows paranormal investigator and author Yasuo, who becomes obsessed with this cursed house that he learns about from actress Haruka, who recounts her ghost stories and hearing faint footsteps in her one-bedroom apartment. And so Yasuo becomes extremely intrigued and sets out on a mission to locate the cursed house, all while working on his book and putting together all these ghost stories that he's been encountering. And the story also focuses on various characters and couples that have lived in the house. So when I first heard that there was gonna be a new Ju-On series and not an American remake, I was super excited. Because my all-time favorite horror movie happens to be the first Ju-On from Takashi Shimizu, and it was amazing. And I love that movie so much that that was the film I chose to write a 15-page paper back in college when I took horror film. Because there was just something about Japanese horror films that were just not conventional to anything we've seen in Western horror movies. Like, we have, vampires, the werewolves, we have zombies, but what we were seeing with Japanese horror was something more psychological. And those films were never really heavily reliant on jump scares. It was all about dread and tension and just the atmosphere. That's what was the selling point for those movies. And to make it even more interesting, they always base their ghosts on Japanese folklore and mythology. So, the woman in white with the long black hair, it's not just The Grudge. We've seen that figure in The Ring was another movie and a couple other Japanese films. So if they look familiar, that's because they were influenced by Onryo, which is an actual Japanese vengeful spirit in Japanese folklore. And that's what kind of makes me a little bit disappointed with this new series, because I felt like a lot of those things that encapsulates what Japanese horror is all about was kind of diluted or missing from this series. And that's not to say that the original Ju-On film was perfect by any means, because it wasn't. If I had just one complaint, it's that it was oftentimes confusing. But when it comes to convoluted plot, Ju-On Origins takes the cake. And that's because the story in Ju-On Origins is not an easy pill to swallow, because it's confusing and there are plot holes in some of these story pieces. And that's why it's extremely important that when you're watching this, you pay attention. You pay attention to every single detail, because if not, you will be confused. And part of that confusion is that this story wants you to focus on multiple characters, and there are also many time jumps that will just send your head spinning. Like this series, time jumps like Marty McFly driving backwards with his feet and Biff's head on the windshield. And the whole time looping and time jumps was a trademark of the original films, but it wasn't as confusing as how they did it in this. And do not be fooled by the origins in the title, because this is not an origin story. So if you thought you were getting an origin story in this series, you already saw it. If you saw the original Ju-On film, the opening sequence is basically the same thing that happened in this movie. The only thing they changed with Origins is that Toshio, he wasn't even born yet. In the old film, that opening sequence where Kayoko gets murdered, Toshio's already 5 or 6, and I call that hardly an origin story at all. To me, it just felt like super lazy writing, because the majority of the series, it plays out like we've seen before, as far as, the people who've lived in the house, the curse that takes hold of them. It's already been done. We've been there. And there are certain sounds and certain things that they just removed that they didn't bring back into the series that makes the original so iconic. Also, some of the other changes were that Kayako, which was the woman that was held captive in 1952 in this series in the attic and murdered, isn't referred to as Kayako, which leads me to more speculation, because when you do see her, she looks like a just ordinary human ghost. But not only that, I don't know how many have picked up on this, she looks a lot like Kiyomi, the transfer student. And that leads me to more questions, more confusion, because now I started to kind of theorize that there is some reincarnation in play, and that Kiyomi is a reincarnation of Kyoko. But it just all leads to less answers and more questions. Now I want to get into the next thing. Is this series scary? I didn't think so. And that was the other problem I had. Like, it just did not have that fear factor that I was expecting that the Ju-On franchise is so well known for. Now, I will give them credit where credit is due. This movie faithfully recreates the tone and the visual look of the original movie. I thought it looked great. And it oftentimes made me feel like I was watching this in the 90s, but with a more clean and polished look. And there are a few disturbing images that will stick with you. Like, there are a couple of them in this movie. I don't want to mention them because if you've seen the trailer, you probably already have an idea. But aside from that, I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel terrified. I also do like the fact that there are almost no jump scares in this, and that's something that they kept consistent with the original movie as well. And another big reason why I didn't find this series scary was because I felt like they placed a lot more emphasis trying to build tension through sexual assault and child abuse and abuse towards pregnant women. I felt like that was their focus for creating fear and tension. And I will admit, those were very disturbing scenes, but not scary. Because for me, fear of the unknown has always been the greatest motivator when it comes to film horror. And that's what makes the original film so great, was just that lingering question, like what's behind all that hair? The obscurity of her look and her face, and just wondering what she really looks like. And every time they would show it, it was through extreme close-ups, or the camera would just like blur or distort. And that was just such a great mechanism for creating and instilling fear. And you don't really have that here as much. So by the end of the series, it just left me feeling a little bit incomplete. I feel like what they were trying to do with this series was maybe test the waters to see how the reception was gonna be, because 6 episodes at 20-something minutes each, like it wasn't enough. Like they should have done like a 10-episode season, maybe an hour each, or maybe just stick to the 30 minutes, but at least give us a fuller season to flesh things out. It just felt like one big long movie, and it didn't feel very episodic to me. And even that cliffhanger ending was a little bit anticlimactic and lacking any kind of punch. Like it left me on the couch like, is that it? And even though there's a lot of things I didn't like about the series, like I thought the cast was great, I thought the music was good, and the sound effects and the visual look, I'm glad they just maintained that same feel of the original. And there are some things that I do like about how the curse manipulates time and space within the house, if they could just make it a little bit less confusing. And so I'm gonna give Ju-On Origins Scramble Juice. And I feel like a season 2 would clean up a lot of the mess from this season and answer a lot of questions, hopefully. But this season was enough to keep me invested and interested and still hanging on to the very end to see if they were gonna answer any of those questions. But that's gonna be my review for Ju-On Origins. Let me know down in the comments below if you've seen it, what your thoughts are on it, and what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Kiyomi could possibly be the actual Kayako, the reincarnated Kayako? Who knows? I don't know. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoy your weekend, and I will see you guys next time. Keep it groovy.